Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Bush School of Business's Alumni Success Story Q&A. We're grateful that you've taken some time to join us and hear from some of our great alumni working in very diverse fields that have done some really great things. They're going to share some stories with you and a little bit about themselves to give you a better picture of some of the things that you can do with your Bush School degree. We think this will be a really informative time, a really helpful time. These types of things have been going on every Thursday at 4 p.m. So if you're interested in joining us again next week, we'll be talking about research strategies with Dr. Anthony Cannizzaro, focusing on undergraduate research. So like I said, today, we're going to focus on what our alumni have to say. Over the next 20 minutes or so, we'll take some time. I'll pose some questions to them that we hear often from prospective students and also from some of our current students about the types of things that they've learned while they were students, some of the experiences that they had outside the classroom that have shaped them into the people that they are now and the opportunities that they're engaging in now, and then also to figure out what they've been up to since they graduated. Let me say a little bit about how to use Zoom if you've never used it before. I think everyone who's joined is joined on a computer, so that's good. We don't have to worry about a phone call issue. But if you have any questions, at any time you can chat me. There's a chat box that you can find if you scroll down to the bottom of the screen. Feel free you can chat me privately, or you can chat the entire group and we'll try to address your question. So after about 20 minutes or so of hearing from everyone together, we will assign everyone to a breakout room with each one of our individual alumnus or alumni. You'll get to ask them some more personal questions, or if you have more particular questions, they'll be happy to answer those in those sessions. So without further ado, let me go ahead and welcome our alumni here. We've got joined with us Allie Gohl, who's a graduate of the class of 2018. We have Candace Chapman, a graduate of the class of 2019, and Justin Smith, a graduate of the class of 2019. Sorry, Justin was actually my intern last year, so I should know that. Well, let's get started. So the first question I'll pose to you, Allie, if you can get us going, tell us a little bit about yourself. What did you study when you were a student at the Bush School of Business? And what are you doing now? And Allie, I think you're muted.
Yep, just realized that, sorry. So I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I am now. I started at Catholic in 2014, graduated in 2018. I was an international economics and finance major at Catholic. It was a great time, had really great professors. I loved being in DC, which was kind of my big motivator to end up at Catholic at the beginning. And right out of college, I moved to New York City, worked there for about a year and a half, working on Wall Street at Bank of America Merrill Lynch in their investment banking division. And after that, kind of the natural progression a lot of investment bankers end up on is they go into private equity. So a few months ago, I moved back to the Cleveland area to work at a private equity fund called Peppertree. We do mostly communications infrastructure. We have several portfolio companies. It's very interesting. I don't know. I like it. But Catholic definitely set me up with the financial background and education to end up where I am.
Great. Thanks, Allie. Candace, how about you?
Hi, everybody. So I started out as a nursing major, and I took one business course, and that converted me to the business school. Because I've always been entrepreneurial, and so I ended up getting a degree in business management. And I graduated in 2019, and I work for a company called Brightfield, and we're a workforce analytics AI company. I'm here in DC. I've been in DC for 15 years now, so wanted to stay home, wanted to stay close, loved Catholic. It's actually like 5 blocks from where I live. And so I'm just super excited to be here today and share a little bit more of the journey.
Yeah, thank you. And Justin, how about you?
Yep. Hi, everybody. My name is Justin Smith, graduated from the Bush School last year. At Catholic, I studied accounting and I minored in French. But when I first started out, I originally was studying international business because I really wanted to do work with big multinational corporations and travel some. And throughout my time at Catholic, I realized that I could do that and still kind of pursue a career in accounting, which is something that I had shown an aptitude for. So I switched my major about halfway through. And now I'm working at one of the big four accounting firms, PricewaterhouseCoopers. I'm an associate in our private company services practice, which does audit work for specifically private companies, which is a little bit different than the bigger publicly listed companies that you would probably know. So it's been really interesting to see a different side of business and to work more hands-on with top level accounting professionals. So first year out, I feel like I've learned a lot, and the Bush School really helps set you up for an awesome career. So couldn't be more thankful.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Maybe we'll go to Candace here for this to start us off for this next question. Candace, can you tell us a little bit about how you got your position with Brightfield? What was it like applying, networking? Tell us about how you got into it.
Yeah, so my internship right when I was graduating was actually with a solar finance development firm. And I was doing a little bit of everything from coding to marketing to trading. It was just a bunch of everything, and it really immersed me, but I knew that's not what I wanted. And the way I got my job for Brightfield, like you mentioned, was through networking. I would go to just a bunch of events and any parties or, professional development events that I could go to, I would. And so I knew deep down I wanted to be in like the technology world, but I didn't actually have the experience for that. I was all in marketing and management, and so I didn't really know how. But through networking and just connecting with people, I had mentioned what I was doing. I was about to graduate. I was really excited. Here's what I want to do. I mean, I sold myself to everyone, and I wasn't shame. I didn't have any shame about it. And that's how I got my job. And someone said, "Wow, you'd actually be a great fit. We're hiring." I'm so thankful for, being able to put myself out there. And I don't think I would have been able to do that without Bush School and sort of the networking events that they had that help you to come out your shell.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing that. I ask you first because going into the industry that you're in is a little less structured than some of the other industries that Allie and Justin have gone into. So I want the prospective students to hear the difference. So
Yeah.
maybe Allie, if you can share with us what it was like going into investment banking for your first position after you graduated.
Yeah, just kind of hearing about the process to end up there.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So the process starts pretty early. I was starting to network with folks probably the fall of my sophomore year, starting to send around resumes and just like see who I could meet. I didn't have any like family connections or anything. So kind of started from the ground up, and finding resources and alumni from Catholic was super duper helpful because it's a lot of more informal talking to people who work there in addition to the interview process. So it was good to set up some connections there. And we actually do a CUA on Wall Street event every year. So that was helpful too in meeting people and kind of developing that professional network really early on in my college career. So then I ended up at Bank of America. They do diversity recruiting events. So I ended up in one of those at the end of my sophomore year. And then again, that whole next summer was a lot of networking. And at the end of it, I ended up getting an interview, which was, it was almost a year-long process just to get the interview. And then they hire you a full year before you even intern. So that was the fall of my junior year. They hired me for the next summer. So I ended up interning at Bank of America, getting a return offer, and then spending like a year and a half there. And the great thing about it after that was then headhunters called me every day to find me a new job. So that's how I ended up in my new position.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Justin, how about you? Going into one of the big four, accounting has a very similar to investment banking, is very rigid structure. What was it like for you?
Yeah, there definitely is a pretty clear-cut path to getting hired at these big firms. It does start very early. I was interviewing for my internship in my sophomore year. It was actually kind of funny. I was studying abroad in Paris in the fall semester of my junior year, and I was still going through the interview process while abroad, and so doing these virtual interviews and then getting the offer. Um, I would say that it does take a lot of networking at some of the bigger firms. I was fortunate enough to know some people who had success in getting hired at the at PwC, and they were very helpful in giving me tips for the interviews and whatnot. So um, I interned going into my junior year and got a full-time offer at the end of the internship, and then started right after graduating.
Yeah, great, great. Thanks for sharing that, everyone. Let's transition to talking a little bit about your time while you were a student. As these prospective students are trying to decide maybe what to study and what's applicable for the real world when they finish, could you maybe we'll go through and talk about what was your favorite class or maybe your most helpful class that you studied in while you were a student at the Bush School? Allie, if we could maybe just start with you on that one.
Um, so the degree I ended up having, it's an international econ and finance. So your first 2 years, it's actually mostly econ classes, which I loved intellectually. It's if you're interested in how the world works, econ is such a cool major to take because it shows you in kind of a quantitative way how the world works, how money moves and all that cool stuff. So I remember taking, it was my like intro to macro class with Dr. Cruz, and she I had actually applied to Catholic as a politics major, so I made like a huge flip in what I ended up doing. But I remember this intro to macro class, and everyone I was in the class with hated it. And I don't mean that to say they hated it, but it was a really difficult class, and I was doing really well in it. So Dr. Cruz was kind of the one who pushed me into the major that I ended up taking. Um, and it's definitely just a by choice. Sorry, Justin, I don't really like accounting that much. So when I say people didn't like this class, it's a choice, and you find that in the Bush School, and I think the professors are really helpful at helping you find your strengths.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Candace, we'll jump to you for this for the next answer, but before I'll give you a second to think about it. I just want to remind everyone that about 4:20 we're going to go into breakout rooms. So if you're interested in doing a smaller discussion with our panelists, you can go ahead and chat. You'll see their numbers next to their names. You can just chat which room number you'd like to go to, and when we wrap up here, I'll go ahead and assign you to that room. So Candace, what about you?
Yeah, so I actually have two classes that were super helpful. The first one I absolutely loved, excelled in. The other one struggled. So the first one was international business my senior year. Loved the professor, and that makes such a huge difference because when you have a professor who sees you as a student individually and really cares about you and actually enjoys their subject and is modern in it, that helps, and they're exciting about it, or they're excited about it. But I love that class because it was just helpful to know the world. And even though I'm not in international business, it really set me up for just thinking globally, being in technology, it really matters, globalization, digital transformation. So just seeing how different countries and different things are sort of similar and related was just super powerful. And in the second class, which was, I'd say from a very practical level, very helpful. It was an Excel class I took my senior year as well. I struggled the whole way through. I complained. It was hard. I'm not a very, or at least before, I wouldn't have considered myself a data analytics person. I'm more of a creative, intuitive person. And so I know I needed it. I was like, this should be a good course. And I use Excel pretty much every day now, from one thing to another. And it sounds so silly, but you find yourself looking back thinking, oh my God, I remember how to do this specific table, or wow, I can create a better looking, presentation than what everyone else might be able to do. And so I think just having some of those tactical skills really have helped me within my day job. And then the other international business is just sort of how I think globally has helped me as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I love to hear those tech skills being used. Justin, tell us what was your favorite class or your most helpful class?
Yeah, so I think, and what you'll find when you first start at any school, your first 2 years, you're really not going to get into the nitty gritty of anything. You really do have to go through the basic level courses, which can be deterring for a lot of people. So a lot of people don't get to the interesting part of accounting because they just stop after the first two classes and say, this is not for me. But some of my favorite classes were the higher level accounting courses like forensics accounting, my auditing course. And then those are just skills that I find myself using every day at work. And it really was so helpful to have a good foundation before starting my career and having those really engaging courses at the Bush School in the field that I ended up going into. So those two accounting courses were really interesting, and it kind of opened my eyes to accounting is not just assets and liabilities. There really is some flavor there if you can get past the dry parts of it. So that was pretty cool. And then my other really interesting class was French for Business, because it was the first time that I was really using the language in a practice that interested me, and it wasn't just learning grammar and writing essays after reading something. So that was a really interesting course as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. We've got about 2 minutes, so I've got one more question for each of you. And just as a reminder, if folks want to participate in the breakout rooms, you can chat me so I can make assignments. But as a last question to each of you, maybe if you could just name a faculty member that was most helpful to you while you were trying to figure out what you wanted to do or what you wanted to study. I know, Allie, you've talked about it a little bit, but if we could just go down the row again and hear.
So I had mentioned Dr. Cruz before. She is the head of the econ department, or at least was when I was there. Her office was right next to another econ professor, Dr. Aguirre. And between the two of them, they were there for me all the time, all 4 years. I took them both my freshman year and took their classes again senior year. So there was a lot of continuity there. And honestly, I think I might have ended up with a politics degree had I not met the two of them. They really helped me kind of discover my own strengths and kind of propelled me to end up in the job that I'm in right now. And I definitely wasn't even giving investment banking a chance until they kind of explained it to me more in depth. And so they were a huge help.
Yeah, great. Candace, how about you?
Yeah, so I'd say the first one being Professor Whitmer, because I took one of his entry level like vocation of business classes, and just the way he talked about business converted me from nursing. And then I'd say Professor Alvarado. I took another class with him, which was about like management and process systems. It just sounds so like dry and boring, but again, I just how to critically think, how to set up different flows and processes and things that seem so data driven, but you'd find yourself even in a conversation, just how can you apply your critical skills? How can you navigate through this conversation and come out with an articulate answer? And I think his class sort of prepared me for that as well. Those would be two of my favorite professors.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Justin, you want to finish us up here?
Sure. I'd say the faculty member that I worked the closest with throughout my 4 years was Professor Kirst, who is also the accounting department head. And coincidentally, he's a retired partner from Pricewaterhouse, so he had a lot of interesting insights as I was preparing to start my career with the firm. But he is just an individual who is so invested in every student that he helps, and he was so instrumental in in getting me to apply for the big four firms and to recognize the potential of international business in an accounting firm, which I definitely wasn't thinking of as a freshman or sophomore. So he was probably the most influential faculty member in during my time at the Bush School. But everybody in the accounting department was just an active member in making sure that we all developed and were set up for good careers.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, all the faculty members that I interact with in my position as the employer relations manager have been really supportive about getting students professional opportunities while they're students, but then using their networks to help students find great opportunities like the ones these three alumni have. We've got actually one question. Maybe we can do a lightning round 20-second answer from each of you before we send everyone to the breakout sessions. The question is, during freshman year, did you find the English, theology, and philosophy classes very challenging? Allie, can you start us off?
Yes. So I was in the honors program the whole time I was there, but so those classes, I guess, are slightly different. I don't know if I would say very challenging, but they definitely make you critically think. And philosophy is one of my passions now that I would have never even thought I would enjoy. And now post grad, I find myself, reading books and things like that. So it's definitely something that sparks probably part of you that you don't really think about in your day-to-day like business classes, but I definitely appreciated having those.
Yeah, thanks for that insight. Candace, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say complete opposite. It was very challenging for me because one, I went to performing arts school in high school, so I'm coming from a background of art where they focus heavily on that majority of your day. So getting back into the routine of learning, and it sounds so bad, like writing, it was a transition for me. So English was a little bit challenging, though I've always loved it. Just having to buckle down and write a ton, read a ton. Philosophy, I love philosophy. The way I, the thinking and all of that. I'm a feeler, so that was great. Theology was definitely challenging for me as well because I'm not actually Catholic. Whoops, but I love Catholic. And I knew that going in, it would be something I would have to be open to and learning a new religion. By the end of senior year, though, I really loved some of my theology classes, but those first ones, I just wasn't used to the volume and the dedication, but I got through it all.
Yeah, that's great. Justin.
Yeah, so I mean, I think Ali and Candace hit on it. They're going to be challenging because they're your first college courses that you'll take as a freshman. But I want to approach the question from a different angle because this question's getting at like what the learning community is for freshmen. And I just want to say like whether the course is challenging or not, just embrace that community that you'll have with the people in your learning communities. Because one of the people that was in my LC is my current roommate now, even after college. So like definitely just dive right into those LCs, meet everybody, create a group chat, like meet the people that you're with right off the bat. Cause you'll find that those people, even come senior year, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that person was in my LC.
Yeah.
And it's a great place to meet people. So yeah, it's a little challenging cause it's your first taste of college, but it's probably going to be one of your highlighted memories from college, those two classes. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The amount of friends that I still keep in touch with that were my LC freshman year friends, that was even more meaningful than what the classes are necessarily, but it gives you a really nice community.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you to our alumni. I appreciate your insights. Hopefully participants, you've been able to see and get a little bit of a flavor of some of the things that our alumni experienced while they were students in the Bush School, and you've heard a little bit about what they do since they've graduated. So at this time, that'll conclude our main session. I've just chatted everyone a link to visit us virtually. You can follow that link and take our virtual tour and learn more about the business school, learn more about what it's like to live in Washington, D.C. At this time, I'm going to conclude with a reminder that We'll do the same thing next week at 4 p.m. with Dr. Anthony Cannizzaro talking about undergraduate research opportunities in the business school. So be sure to tune in next week for that. Now I'm going to assign everyone to a breakout room, and we will go from there. When we wrap up with your breakup room, you can just completely leave the call. No need to come back to this main session. Alumni, as you're in there, if you get a question you're not sure how to answer, I will be hanging out in this main space. You can request me to come in, and I'll be happy to do so. So thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. I'm going to assign everyone now.